So quick health warning, you are strongly advised to only use these steel and tungsten loads for a gun that is high performance steel proofed. You'll find this stamped on the action. It's a fleur-de-lis symbol. I'll show you what a fleur-de-lis looks like if you didn't already know. It's usually a more squashed version of this. It'll be stamped on the barrels or the action of the gun like this. So what do you do when your very expensive tungsten supply has almost run out? A very common and heartbreaking situation for home loaders. Well, one thing you can do, and one thing that's quite common, is to make a duplex load, which is essentially a mix of tungsten and steel. Normally it's about a third weight of tungsten and the rest of the wad topped up with steel. So not only does this make a little go a long way with your tungsten supply, it also makes a hybrid load that essentially is intended to be the best of both worlds, in that it gives you a pattern that spreads out faster at closer ranges than a pure TSS load. The design intent is that the steel spreads out and takes care of targets at closer ranges, 20-25 yards, while the TSS stays in a tighter pattern and provides lethal killing ability out to further ranges, 40, 45, 50 yards, if you want to try and hit a target at that range. So this is the load, 1 ounce duplex load using number 8 TSS and number 5 steel, because I've got a lot of it and I use it a lot for pigeons, shooting pigeons with non-toxic shot. I also feed pigeon carcasses to falcons, so they've got to be shot with some kind of non-toxic version. Steel works well. These are BPS TPS 35 wads, hard to get hold of. That's what the recipe calls for, with a ballistic products gas seal as well. Quite handy. These wads come pre-slit, which saves you the trouble of having to slit them all. So, as with my other loads, you've probably seen, I put the recipe doesn't call for this, but I put a mylar wrap on the inside of the wad just to give the barrels and forcing cone and chokes a bit of extra protection from those tiny little tungsten beads. Just don't want to remove any chance of them sneaking out through the wad slits. And it's quite nice, this load, in that you can fill up the wad with shot instead of a lot of felt packer. So it just needs 1/8 packer at the bottom, 20 bore, 20 gauge felt packer tamped down into the bottom, and that's it. That's the wad ready to put in the case. So you may be thinking that's a lot of plastic components that are going to get deposited out into the environment, but I tend to only use these loads on inland ponds and splashes where I can go the next morning, and generally most of the wads and components are washed up on the shore. They float, so it's fairly straightforward to go and pick up the flotsam and jetsam. Estuaries, I probably tend not to use it for obvious reasons because I can't recover them, but it's perfectly fine on inland duck and goose shooting, in my opinion. Shot sizes, very common in the States. People all have their own preferences of the shot size of the two different types. It's usually 7s, 8s or 9s in the tungsten and 2s, 3s, 4s in the steel. I use 8s or 9s in the tungsten, and for teal and widgeon, which are the bulk of my duck shooting, I use 4 or 5 steel. I think it's perfectly adequate for those small ducks and gives you a nice wide pattern at 20-25 yards, which I guess is the bulk of inland duck shooting, I guess. Goose shooting, people in the States like the steel element to be 1s, 2s and 3s. The advantage of having the tungsten backing up the load as such is that you can afford to put less steel pellets in there and make them bigger, so they can, because the tungsten is supplying so many small deadly pellets, you can afford to up the size in the steel and still have a well filled out pattern at close and longer ranges. So number 8 and tungsten and 1 and 2 and 3 steel are very popular combinations, and as soon as I can get some, I'll probably load up some in 8 or 9 tungsten and 3 steel just to give you that coverage and So if anything flies along from teal to Canada geese, you've got the cartridge that will have effective killing power. When I said that it makes a little tungsten go a long way, there's plenty of people in the UK, wildfowlers especially, who load up very small loads of just the tungsten, half-ounce, 3/4 ounce loads in 410s and 28 bores, and go out and shoot a lot of grey geese and Canada geese at ranges. Obviously, it doesn't make up for bad shooting. You've still got to put it in the right place, but if you can, it's remarkable how effective the tungsten is at longer ranges on big quarry. I'll include a couple of links on the screen below where you can see how effective it is if you can shoot straight. A word on steel. There's a lot of crap spoken about steel and how effective, or in some people's eyes, how ineffective it is. Steel works absolutely fine within certain parameters and certain ranges. Most of my shooting life I've used steel for one apart from anything else, because I feed the byproducts of what I shoot to falcons, so I've had to use non-toxic shot. And if you're sensible about your ranges and you adjust your shot size accordingly, steel works absolutely fine. Probably a generation of wildfowlers have grown up now using mostly steel, and they know, and we all know, that it works perfectly fine, as well as lead, if you're sensible about what you shoot and the ranges you shoot at. The Scandinavian countries have never known anything else but steel since the 1980s, and if you said to any of them that steel was no good for geese, they'd give you more than a quaint look. The easiest way to demonstrate the effectiveness of steel is just to go on YouTube and look at some of the Dutch wildfowlers sites where they're shooting various species of geese for crop protection, and they're mostly using, which even I found surprising, was 4 and 5 steel. That seems to be a favourite shot size for steel, and well, anyway, they have no issues with it whatsoever. So there we are. We took a little bit of tungsten that we had left and turned it into 6 deadly cartridges. Just time for a quick speed and pattern test. First time I've shot this gun before, and I only had one piece of cardboard, so I put improved cylinder choke in, 30 yards. Speed was about 1250 feet per second, so slightly slower than the average clay load, but fast enough for our purposes. There's the pattern, probably a bit loose really for 30 yards. This is improved cylinder, so probably stick a modified or light modified or half choking. The red dots are the steel, the black dots tungsten. So yeah, not the best pattern, but I'll put a modified choke in and try again. And that's an evening flight from last season using this load, so works quite nicely. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.